guys, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm making a requested video and it's going to outline what it's actually like to study law. So I'm going to go through the modules we get to choose from, what you have to study, what a typical week is like in terms of the classes you have, lectures, independent study, talk about coursework, exams, what the students are like, what advocacy opportunities you get, what career opportunities you get, and also, most importantly, what free time you get. So let's hop straight into the video, and hopefully this will give you a really good idea of what it's actually like to be a law student on a day-to-day basis. And the intention of this video is to help you decide whether law is for you. So first things first, I'm going to outline the modules that you have to take and then potential options that you get to choose. All of this is roughly going to be based on my experience as a law student at the University of York. I just completed my law degree this year. So some universities might vary, and this won't be like strict Bible for every university, but it will give you a general idea. And there are also like compulsory subjects you have to take, which are pretty standard across the board. So it will give you a good idea of what it's actually like to be a law student at university. So modules. In your first year at York, you have to take the compulsory Foundations in Law 1 and 2, which encompasses like your foundational modules. So you have criminal law, property law, public law, you have obligations, which encompasses tort law and contract, and then you have EU law. And also within property law, you have equity and trusts. So you do foundations in 1 and 2 in your first year, and you do foundations in 3 and 4 in your second year. So basically for the first 2 years, a third of your modules is made up of those subjects. So then in first year here at York, we do a legal concepts module, which is like philosophical ideas about law. You look into justice and morality and those type of things. And then you do a module called Law in the Society, so looking at issues that are in the legal workplace, like funding cuts to legal aid and diversity in the judiciary. And then you do a practical module called Legal Skills, and this is where you get to do your advocacy and your mooting and meet with clients and draft documents and get a real hands-on feel for actual legal work. And then also in your first year here, we do this module called Portfolio. You basically don't have any contact time for it. It literally is just a written report at the end of the year talking about how you have sort of progressed over the year. And I know other unis don't really do that, so that is quite York specific. So in first year, you don't get any module choices whatsoever. It's pure compulsory. I think that's pretty standard for most universities. It's quite rare if you get to choose modules in first year. And then in second year here, so you do the Foundations in Law 3 and 4, which build on 1 and 2. Then you do Advanced Legal Skills, which builds on legal skills again. So all those, mooting and advocacy and all of those things you still do in your second year. So then you have the 3 module slots left. So we get to choose a module. And here at York, you got a choice of about 10 modules. Things that covered philosophy of law, human rights, housing, environmental law, criminal law. They're kind of like the main basic areas of law that you would have come into contact with in first year and might want to explore further. So we had a choice of 10 and we had to choose 1 for our second year. And then the other 2 modules we have at York for your second year is the portfolio module, which you do again, it builds on the portfolio module in first year. And then you do P&E, which is professionalism and ethics. You basically learn about how the legal practice functions and the business of law. So they're the modules that you do in your first and second year. So then again in third year here, we have 6 modules that we have to fill. Your dissertation is worth 2 modules and you can do that on literally whatever you want to do. And then you have 4 modules that you get to have a choice with. So you get to choose optional modules for those. And we had, I think, a choice of about 20 or 30 modules to fill those 4 with. So you do get a good choice. And I know that most universities, you do get a good choice. And also when you choose modules in third year, you normally get a more niche set of module choices. So I could do things like intellectual property, the law of art, I could do mental capacity and mental health, I could look into more like housing law and welfare, I could also do more niche areas of the criminal law, you could do practical modules that you've done in legal skills and carry that on, you can do the clinic module, which is like pro bono work. There's a lot more that you can do in third year, but I also know that some universities have compulsory modules you have to do in third year, and then you get more of a choice in second year. So it does depend on the university, but you do normally get quite a good choice, and as you go on you do get to tailor your degree. So that's roughly the modules that you have to do when you're at law school. So now I want to outline what the schedule is like for each year. So I'm first going to explain what a typical schedule is like for a first year at the University of York. I'm just going to go through Monday to Friday and say what that person would have on each day. I'll put it on the screen so you can visually see what I'm talking about, and it'll kind of give you an idea of how much contact time we have. It is worth noting that York is a very contact heavy sort of course. We do have more contact time purely because we use PBL, which is like this whole new way of how we learn law. Other universities don't do that. So I know that a lot of normal law schools would probably have something around 8 to 12 hours of contact time. Here in the first 2 years it's more like 20, but going through this will give you an idea anyway of what to expect. Here for a first year, on a Monday you would have a 2-hour legal skills lecture, and then you would have an hour foundations in law lecture, and then on Tuesday we would have 2 hours of lectures for foundations in law, followed by a interim session, which is like a check-up session for our seminars. And then on Wednesday we would have back-to-back lectures, 1 hour for legal concepts and 1 hour for law in society. Thursday we would have 2 hours of PBL, which is our like seminars to pick up the main foundational law, and then we would have the same on Friday, a 2-hour session for PBL. That's typically what it's like in first year. So in summary, we would have 5 hours of seminars and 7 hours of lectures. So for a typical second year student at the University of York, we would have on a Monday 2 hours lecture for an optional module, followed by 2 hours of PBL, followed by an hour foundations in law lecture. On Tuesday we would have 2 hours of PBL, which is again a seminar, and then followed by an hour lecture of foundational law. On a Wednesday, we would have a triple lecture for foundations in law, which would be 3 hours long. So on Thursday, we would have 2 hours for professionalism and ethics, followed by an hour of foundational law. And on Friday, we'd have a 2-hour legal skills seminar, which would alternate each week. 1 week it'd be a lecture, 1 week it'd be a seminar, followed by an hour of our interim PBL seminar session. So for second year, a typical week would consist of 13 hours of lectures and 5 hours of seminar contact time. So the workload does increase a little bit in second year. So in third year, we get way less contact time here at York, purely because we have the dissertation module, which makes up a third of the year, and we rarely have contact time for that. So basically, I'm basing a typical week off my third year schedule. So my schedule consisted of, on a Monday, an hour's lecture for intellectual property, which is my optional module. Then I'd have a 2-hour seminar for my art law module. Then on a Wednesday, I'd have 2 hours lecture for the art law module. And then on the Friday, I'd have a 2-hour seminar for my intellectual property. So as you can see, I had a lot more free time in final year. So basically, I was in typically 7 hours a week, which went from obviously like 18 in second year to like 7 in third year. I had way more time. So that's all the schedules for each year, first, second, and third. And now I just want to go into more independent study and how much work I'd have to do to make that up. So in first year, we had obviously like 13, 14 hours of contact time, and I typically did around 30 hours, 35 hours of independent study. Purely because it's new, I didn't really know much law and I wanted to learn as much as I could. Second year, for me here, we had a lot more advocacy work, so that took up so much time, and we had 18 hours of contact time, which then we added on about 35 hours for independent study as well. So the workload increased quite a lot, and second year was quite tough. And then in third year, we had about 7 hours of contact time, and I typically did probably 15, maybe 20 hours of independent study. So as you can see, that workload in third year pretty much halved second year. So it's like downhill once you get past second year. It's easy breezy. So now I want to talk about assessments. So here at York, we are mainly coursework based. In my first year, I had 1 exam, and in my second year, I had 2 exams, and I didn't have any exams in my final year. Pretty much, we are assessed mainly by coursework. In my first year, I think it was about 15 bits of coursework throughout the year. They consisted of anything from a debate that we had to give to a 3,000 word essay, a 1,500 word essay, reports, reflective diary type things, a wide range of things. That pretty much was also similar for second year, but I think we had more about 18 or 19 bits of coursework in second year, which at York as well is quite intense because you normally get 1 bit to do over Christmas, 1 bit to do over Easter, and then third term you basically have like 15 bits of coursework to do. So it is quite intense. So third year was different purely because I didn't have exams, and a third year was the dissertation that I had to write, which I mainly wrote in third term. So for the first 2 terms, I just did my modules, and then they finished at the end of the term. I handed in an essay essay for each, and then I started new modules the next term. So it was pretty easy breezy, and I think final year was much better that it was structured like that. And also that really does depend on the university, whether it is mainly coursework or exams. And it also is a thing to mention that if you are more exam based, go for a university that's obviously does more exams. And if you're more coursework, then go for someone that does coursework. Typically the time frame for each essay varied. Normally for say a 3,000 word essay that's worth like 15 or 20 credits, I would spend like 40 hours on that start to finish. But that is because I can write essays within a day, so I just sit there and bang it out, and I spend most of my time on the research and the planning, but obviously that varies per person. More of the 1,500 word essays, I would probably spend 25-30 hours on that. The debate pieces or the more like shorter assessments would have to do 15-20 hours. You know, the longer the essay, typically the more time I would have to put in. My dissertation, Jesus, I probably put about 200 hours into that over the year. And then exams themselves, I normally would revise 3 hours a day for the week before, and then 4 hours probably 2 days before. So for exams, I probably put in about 15 hours per exam to revise, and I don't revise throughout the year. That's just what it really needs. So now I want to talk about the advocacy opportunities we get as a law student. So most universities will do a legal skills or a practical module that enables you to do mooting and, you know, meeting with clients and things like that. And say here, for example, we actually don't get that much opportunity to do real life, you know, mooting and stuff in those modules. I mean, we do, but it's not like every week. So normally over one term, you'd get a case and it would build, and then you'd do something at the end of the term. So for example, in second year, in first term, we did a criminal trial. So each week, someone in your class would get an opportunity to like meet with the defendant and do, you know, the bail hearing, prepare the case. And then when it would go to trial, then someone else would do it, and then it's the whole process of a trial. In second term, we did like a civil trial, and then we also did a negotiation with multiple parties, but typically we got like 4 weeks to do each thing. So because the classes were fortnightly, you only really had like 2 classes to do a civil trial, and then bang, that's it for the year. So you do get the opportunity, but it's not like everyone in that class gets the opportunity every session. You could go through your whole university not really having done much. It's like mooting. I only did 1 moot in my first year, and then I did 1 bail application in my second year and a negotiation in my second year, and that's it. So effectively I've done 3 bits of advocacy in 3 years. But you can also do more than that by doing the mooting society, the bar society at your university, as well as doing like pro bono work or clinic, which is like pro bono work for the community. And typically those opportunities are available throughout the 3 years you're there. So if you have a really strong sort of passion for doing advocacy, or you want to try it, you can do that weekly outside of your course. And the next topic is reading. This is like, I feel like what most people associate law with, or law students with, that we just do loads of reading. And honestly, I don't think we do as much reading as people think we do. Like, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of reading, but we're not constantly in the library, heads in the book. Most law students I know go out night clubbing 3 or 4 times a week. So having said that, I just sort of want to break down typically how much reading we would get on a week and how much work we'd have to do. So for example, in first year, so our PBL cycle, which as I said relates to our foundational law topics, which is like the criminal, public, all of those things, we would have 2 cycles a week, and it would normally be 10 hours of research and typing up your answers per cycle. So we'd have 20 hours of research for those. Mainly that would involve probably reading 200 pages per cycle, so like 400 pages a week. Now, I know that does sound quite a lot, but you're not reading 400 pages. You're reading probably 50 pages out of those 400 fully, and the rest you're sort of like skimming. And I know that might sound like maybe daunting to think, well, how do I know which ones to skim? Trust me, when you get to law school, after a couple of weeks, you pick the skills like that up very quickly. The same with cases. You know, a lot of the time they tell us to read a case. I remember when Brexit was going on, we had to read Miller, and that case is a long case, and it's like over 100 pages. But you're not reading 100 pages of A4 case law. Realistically, you're reading the introduction, the conclusion, and then any sort of like subheadings throughout, or any key bits that relate to the thing that you're working on. So you're not reading the whole thing, and that is a skill that you really do master in your first year of uni, and it makes life so much easier when you have done that, because then you're not reading the 500-600 pages you get set for all of your modules of reading that week, you're realistically reading like 100, and that's very doable over the week. So in summary, we probably do get set like a couple hundred pages of reading a week, and then you do more on top of that for your own independent research and reading. So realistically, you're not reading all of it. Do not let reading or anything like that put you off. Secondly, on the reading topic is textbooks. So check before you go to law school that your university does or doesn't have a subscription service. So here at York we have Law Trove, which is an online subscription service for your textbooks. It's like Netflix basically for all of your textbooks, and it's free. So we can just go online and then like read all the textbooks there, so we don't have to buy them. And equally, we have a really good, well-furnished library full of books that, because everyone uses it online, they don't ever go to the library, so you can always go and check them out. A lot of law schools as well only encourage you to buy 1 or 2 staples, and then the library will have the rest. So check with your law school before you buy books, because books can be very expensive. Typically for an academic year, you're going to realistically spend £300-400 on textbooks, so it's important to factor that in when you're picking universities, but also budgeting for university. So next on the list is to talk about work experience. Now, work experience is like so hard to come by as a law student, because law is very, very competitive. Students are very competitive and are very snaky when it comes to trying to get a job, because pretty much day one of law school is, okay guys, you're working towards getting a job. So the whole push the whole time is to get employed at the end of it. There is a lot of work experience available if you look for it. Now, I don't think many people know where to look or want to put the graft in to go and look for it, and it also just depends what area of law you want to do. If you want to be a barrister, it's a lot harder, especially in your first year, to get like mini pupilages and things like that. You'll realistically just get like an open day at a set of chambers or an inn of court, and then in your second and third year you're more likely to get mini pupilages. Then that doesn't stop you going to your local courts, and also like the CPS have advocates in your local courts. You can literally go and like set up work experience with the CPS and see that side of it. If you want to be a barrister, there's a lot of like ways that you can get work experience, even through like marshalling and stuff like that, marshalling a judge. So it's not limited just to mini pupilages. So for the solicitor route, in first year you have the open days and the insight days. The insight days can also lead to job offers if you play your cards right. In second year you have back schemes, which is like a week-long interview, and then you have like a job interview at the end of the week. And in third year you can also do VAC schemes, but typically most people just then apply to training contracts, which is like the job offer basically in their third year. So they don't normally do work experience unless they haven't got a job by the end of third year. So there's a lot of work experience you can do for the solicitor's route. There's also other options, like if you want to go and shadow people in court, or do more like local high street sort of shadow days, paralegal work, if you want to get hands-on work experience in that way. And also I think I want to emphasize, because I assume that most people watching this want to be law students or like early on in their law degree, that it doesn't hurt, and if anything, it's preferable to get work experience that is completely unrelated to what you want to do. Because if you just show up to an employer and have only work experience for the job that you want to do, and they ask you, but how do you know you don't want to do something else? How are you going to answer that? Because you've never actually tried anything else, or to them it will seem like that. So get work experience in all areas of law. If you want to be a barrister, get solicitor work experience, and vice versa, and also get non-law work experience, because there's a lot of transferable skills from doing, even if it's like marketing jobs and things like that. It teaches you communication skills and organisation skills, and shows a creativity and flair which you can really, really bring to the job of being a lawyer. So basically, if you're ever struggling to get work experience relating to the specific barrister and solicitor route, you can get work experience generally. And I know at university, like, there is so much work experience going more broadly outside law, so that's never a struggle, and there's always loads going. Like, I did over 30 things of work experience in my 3 years. You don't need to do that much. I just had loads of opportunities, and I couldn't say no to them, so I just did them. But 5 or 6 really sufficient. And now leading on from that is career. So the career prospects, and also the push for career at law school. I know I've touched on that briefly, but I just want to emphasize on that more. When you're a law student, you really do need to prepare for that big push that from day one of law, they will be shoving you into the direction of, you must be a lawyer, you need to to go down that route, and it's really hard to like divert away from that and say, actually, I'm not sure if I want to do law. I want to have some time to think about it, because everyone is like swarming for that end goal, and you feel like you're going to miss out, or you're not going to get a job if you join that later, which isn't the case at all. Like, it's better to take time and know that law's definitely for you, because it's a career for life at the end of the day, and you really want to do a job for life if you don't truly love it. So in first year, a lot of people just vibe through first year and they're not too bothered about a job until the end of first year. But if you do work experience in your first year, then I think it does give you an advantage. And especially when you apply to the same firms for work experience in your second year, they'll remember you and they'll be more sort of fond of you. And then in second year is like the hell year for all work experience, because that's when people really wake up and think, oh my God, I need to get work experience because I graduate in like 18 months, and then they like stress out, and people, you go through the application cycles, which are generally really stressful, just because you've got to do them either at Christmas or July, which is both sort of around assessment periods, I suppose, and a lot of work must go into the applications, so you can't really apply to like 20, it's more just like 3 to 5, which puts even more pressure on a lot of people because they think, well, what if I don't get in? And then obviously, you know, a lot of second and third year is spent going off doing these VAC schemes for a week. Most people I know in second and third year, they would have a month in April just straight doing VAC schemes for the month, being a whole month in London or wherever they are. So, you know, a lot of time is spent doing work experience. And also, I think what feeds to the panic is that a lot of people, especially in my years, ended up getting training contracts at the end of first year, at the end of second year, which basically then just puts like an emphasis on the people who don't have them. And then they're sitting there thinking, well, I don't have a job to go to, when other people do. And especially in law as well, you need to really get a training contract before you graduate. So when you go on to do the LPC, which is like the further study after you graduate, I know that's all changing, but currently that's what it is, that the firm will pay for it. So otherwise you'll have to self-fund the further study in order to qualify to be a solicitor, which is expensive. So a lot of people really, really want that job before they leave uni. So funny to note on the career fund in terms of splits. So I would say in my year, a very small minority of people wanted to do the bar route purely because you normally have to self-fund the whole process. It's very expensive, and only really if you get funding or you have money or you're from a privileged background that you'll be able to do it. And a lot of people do the solicitor route. So I would say like 80% of the solicitor route out of the people doing law. So finally, the more personal topics, I suppose. So I want to talk about the students and what they're like. I know I've also touched on this a little bit, but oh my God, the students at law school, and so not what I expected them to be. I expected like Legally Blonde, where they all sit in the library all day and then they're like really like go-getters and really want to go do all of the work experience. I mean, they are like that more in second and third year, but in first year, everyone was like vibing in first year. Thing is just it doesn't count, and people know law is a very tough degree, so they want to get their fun in straight away before the degree like heats up. But honestly, throughout the whole 3 years really, there's a lot of my mates and a lot of people that I know from the course who just sort of vibed through the whole thing. Like, they still went out 2 or 3 times a week, and even in exam season people would still go out like once a week clubbing and going, you know, seeing their friends and stuff. So you do have a good social life and there's a lot of time for that. But it is worth noting that majority of the time the students are very competitive. Even if it seems like they're vibing, there still is an element of, would you get on that test? Oh, I did better than you. Or like, what did you do on that? And oh, whatever. Oh, you didn't get into that back scheme. I did. Stuff like that. Honestly, for the whole 3 years, there's little like digs and hierarchy all the time. So I think it also doesn't help that at our law school, at the end of the year, we have like an award ceremony. So if you're a high achiever, then you get an award, which is good. Like, it acknowledges people's like hard work, but at the same time, everyone is then like, oh, I want the award, and it just adds to the pressure. So yeah, like, it is quite a high pressure environment, but if you surround yourself with good friends, and especially people who don't do law, you can take that step back. And I feel like if you have mates who don't do law at uni, it makes the process so much nicer because you're not surrounded by that like constant stress. So finally, personal time. What type of social life do law students have, and what do we get up to? And do we spend all day in the library like some people assume? No, we have so much free time, in my opinion, especially in third year. I spent third year doing a lot of what I wanted to do. Obviously, I did YouTube. I did a lot of like, you know, societies and clubs and travelled quite a bit. I've always had free time. The There are exam periods where, let's be real, I'm literally just doing my work and that's it. Like I do sacrifice a lot of my hobbies and interests, but that's only for like 4 to 6 weeks, and then the rest of the year it's pretty chill. And I think the only thing that eats into law students' time is work experience. As I said, if you do 2 or 3 VAC schemes, that's 3 or 4 weeks of your life taken up where you're solely just doing VAC schemes, then you get behind on work, and then you'll do work, and then it'll like snowball into stress. But on the whole, like, yeah, we have a lot of free time, and most people find time to go to the clubs every week and go out, get drunk, travel, do societies. Most people do 2 or 3 societies as well and go to events, whether it's law events or just more like fun stuff. So you do get a rich social life, and you're not in the library all the time, only probably for exam season, which is like, you know, as I said, a month or 2 a year, and the rest of the time is pretty chill. So yeah, I think the myth of we're always in the library and we're always stressing is just, it's just not really that true, as long as you know, prioritize your work and have good organizational skills. I hope this video was helpful, and I hope it kind of shone a bit of light on what it's actually like to be a law student at university, and a typical week, and how many contact hours you have, and what kind of to expect if you want to do law. And good luck to people going into law for September. I hope you really enjoy your degree. I hope you like this video. I'll see you next week. I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.